Good morning and happy Father's Day weekend and early Father's Day. Um, as you can see, I got my favorite cup here with my favorite cup of coffee in here, and I also have none other than Spidey with me. But I also have two other people here with me that I would like to share with you my thoughts on the meaning of Father's Day and just basically, the importance of having a father figure. Even if it's, even when we just had Mother's Day, there are mothers that are out there that have been both a mother and a father. So I do want to recognize you ladies and everything. So thank you so very much. Um, this is going to get a little personal, so please bear with me. For me, Father's Day was kind of a celebration, a holiday celebration. When I say holiday, for as many of you folks who may have seen different channels, I was raised as a Jehovah's Witness, and things like Father's Day, Mother's Day, Christmas, etc. You get the idea. I wasn't allowed to celebrate. And I know for my father, that was very hard on him because he wanted me to do father's things with him, but and did that cause a lot of strife between him and my mother. But here's the thing, though, he did make up in it in a lot of ways. And let me say something too. When it comes to my father and I would say we were not close. But the thing is, though, I knew my dad, if that makes sense. And I'm going to say some things that I hope it doesn't. It might strike a nerve, but I hope it makes sense to where at least that it's not being put this in a negative context. Being at the time a young black, young African American black young man at that time, little boy up to being a teenager. The emphasis of a black father was important. And my dad did not have that per se or anything, and he struggled a lot too. But the thing was that one thing I did know this, and I can sit there and say this: I knew my father, and I'm not saying that this was like that, like that with every other black male or anything without a father figure. Let's clear that at least. In some cases, yes, but overall, I knew my father. And I am proud to be my father's son, no matter what. And for that, you got to read for how I became, for me doing a channel like this based on, fanboy, comic book geek, comic book nerd, music nerd especially. A lot of that came from him. My father was a musician, and he played in a local band here in Ardmore, Oklahoma, and it was one of the first R&B bands, ever. And for that, I take pride in that. I take pride that he was one of the first African American bartenders here in Ardmore, Oklahoma, at a country club called Dornick Hills, and they love my father. So for them, I thank all of them out there for that. And, one thing that my father always has done for me, and he could tell that I wasn't going to be the sports type and all. Of course, though, as I got older, I'm into major NFL football, and I'm a Dallas Cowboys fan like he is. So sorry, folks. I'm a Dallas Cowboys for life person, and hey, that plays with me being a nerd too. By the way, um, you know, thinking about that, that makes me connected to him in more ways than any way. Excuse me. But one thing that he did nurture me in on was growing up at that time. Star Wars was popular. So was superheroes and everything. And my dad would make sure I would get a lot, and I do mean a lot, of the latest Star Wars toys that would come out, everything from the original to Empire Strikes Back. In between that, some G.I. Joe, He-Man for sure, Transformers, Voltron. Dang it, I feel like I'm leaving one more out. And it'll come to the Mega superhero dolls and all that. I'm thankful for that because even though he couldn't celebrate Father's Day with me, every day was a Father's Day. Every day was a Christmas because I got to enjoy and get um, things that I loved. And that takes a context because, again, saying growing up as a Jehovah's Witness, a lot of those characters would be frowned upon and have been frowned upon. But that's why I'm grateful and blessed that my maternal side of the family also, and I'm going to get to that, they, at least with my father, with my mother, and well, my grandmother too, even though she thought like superheroes were just, too kiddie and everything, and my grandfather, who I will get to in just a moment, they were flexible and allowable enough not to be too restrictive with me on letting me be a young man, letting me be a young boy. And so for my father, though, my connections with him was through comic books, finding out that he loved Iron Man. He saw that I was getting into comic books more, and we talked a little bit about that, and surprised that he loved reading about Tony Stark. I mean, my dad was the cool guy. He wanted to be like Tony Stark. And so I think that when I first got heavily into Marvel, Iron Man was the first one that I gravitated to, even though low-key I was getting older and I loved Transformers, but I thought Transformers was getting to be too much of a kid thing. So Tony Stark, seeing a guy in the living armor, a living Transformer, to me, that was a great thing. But then seeing Tony, the character, outside of the armor was like, okay, I would like to be that guy. And that makes me think of, my conversations that I had with my father and everything. And he went through a lot of struggles for a while. And we both struggled, too, with each other and all that. I will treasure a moment, though, when my mother had passed away back in 2013. It took him a while to respond. Okay. Now, I wasn't a kid. I was an adult, but, every parent, it doesn't matter how old you are, you do need your father and your mother. And he did finally, respond. And we took the time to drive around and just talk about things and all that. And it didn't really matter like what I remember what we talked about. But though, one thing that we did, again, bonded on was through music. And, there's a song by a band called Confunction, which is a great group. Bruno Mars covered their song Love Strain. We listened to a song that he played with this band, and I do remember this, called Let Me Put Love on Your Mind. And that guitar solo, he was telling me about this crazy guitar player who was really Jimi Hendrixy and everything, and just played this great solo, which I do want to get into the history of black guitar players besides Jimi Hendrix. That's a lot of things another thing I want to get into. But, we had that little time together and everything, and, and we would get to see each other now and then, and off and on, and all that. I've been got busy with my own life and jobs and everything else, and he was busy with his girlfriend and all that. And then 2020 hit. We all know what happened. We all know we went through a pandemic. And then by 2021, that was a rough year. And if I could show this here to this man right here, Edward Dean Moore, passed away on December 4th, 2021. But he was born on July 3rd, but basically is celebrated on July 4th. So, when I look at my father and I see that, when I look at the things of what I've become and how I am, like I said, fathers and sons may have differences, but the thing is, I am so proud and grateful for my father. And one thing he left a lasting legacy is his sisters. Many of them have passed, but I do have so many living ones that I love and treasure. He left me a sister, a beautiful, loving, strong, big sister, Christy, and her children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren now. Yeah, we're both close to the same age, and trust me, it was the late 80s, trust me. Things went crazy, but we're crazy. But you know what? My sister has always been a rock and all that, and they've both been close together, and it's obvious, fathers and daughters will always have a closeness, so that's not the issue. But he left me that legacy. He left me a sister and a little brother too, and everything, who's an artist and a comic book artist. You have to go check his app out, Facebook page, internet page out. I'm gonna have to look it up. I'm sorry, I'm still waking up in the morning, but I will shoot you a link and everything. But this love for comic books are there too. So for me, without this weekend is gonna be rough, but knowing though the fact that this what this man has done and everything, I definitely miss him and love him. And this is one thing you got to treasure your fathers and even your grandfathers who raised you. And for me, when it comes to my lineage, when it comes to how I love comic books, this gentleman right here, if I could pull him up close too, and I'll pull my dad's up close, Mervyn Henry Ben Pickens. And let me do this with my dad also right quick. That's my father right there. But this gentleman right here definitely nurtured my love for comic books and science fiction even more, because he loved watching Star Trek. He loved the Star Wars movies. He took me to my first comic book movie ever, and that was Superman 78. So that's how long I go with. I remember him and my grandmother buying me a Batmobile for the Mego Batman and Robin and everything, and me playing with that. Or my grandma making me a costume and everything. So, Superman costume. Like I was a big Superman fan. Let me just show you a picture of my grandmother right quick, if you could see. This is my grandmother right there. My grandmother. And this is when I say when I sit there and say fathers, mothers who have been fought, who have been, let's see, sorry, Mom, who have also been a mother and a father. This was my mother, Deborah Jean Pickens, who I lost in 2013, and I miss her every day. I truly do. And again, my grandmother, this lady who was a seamstress, a monster one, and a monster who basically made a lot of my Superman costumes, even if they were just capes and everything, and I would put the Superman costumes together. But overall, though, going back to my grandfather, years ago, he surprised me with something. He used to tell me that when he was a little boy, my cousin and I were watching Super Friends and all that, Challenge of the Super Friends, and he used to tell me, oh, I used to read those when I was a little boy. Now, granted, 1956, okay, when I think about that, I didn't think, the Flash wasn't around at that time. Now, I knew Barry Allen was around in the 50s, so I'm sure my grandpa probably got to read him. He came in 1956 and everything. But he says, no, there was another Flash. And I'm like, Grandpa, I don't. Me and my cousin look at me like, okay, Grandpa, we got you and everything, we believe you. Okay, jump maybe a month or two later, I'm at the public library with my mom and one of our local public libraries. And there's this book on the golden age of comic books. And I wanted to read it, I figured there's stuff about Superman, Batman, I knew Wonder Woman, all those guys that have been around. I turned to one page and I'm looking at there's a comic book called Flash Comics. There's a guy called the Flash, but in a silver tin hat with wings on his head, pretty much looking like the god Mercury. And I'm like, wait a minute, what is going on here? So I got that and took that book with me, and my cousin and I were reading it, and we turned it to that page, and we showed it to my grandfather. He looks at it, goes like, that's the Flash I remember. And I'm like, revelation. Comic books have been in my DNA for years, and it's because of a man like him who, even when my father was not around, was that man that was nurturing. And we did things a lot together. He was my pawpaw. Like on a Saturday morning right now, I'm trying not to, I'm getting so many memories about this. I would spend Saturday mornings with him and my grandparents every day whenever my mother would have to work, or, my dad was busy, of course, and everything, or whatever, back in the early 80s, and all that. They were still young, and how things were. But the thing was I treasured those moments. And sadly, strokes and diabetes took him away. And that's why I want to emphasis on health. Why, for me personally, now I'm getting close to his age. I am close to his age to where that can happen to me. So I have to watch myself now. But I'm sharing this with you is because two men that I truly adore are no longer with me. And Father's Day is hard, and again, I've never celebrated it, so it's a new thing to me. But for this year and from this one, for this day forward, I'm an uncle. I'm not a father yet. You never know. I haven't met the right woman or anything like that. But times can change. I mean, you never know. This year's been a good year. Kind of had some funky times and all that, but I know especially lately it's just been super busy. So you never know what'll happen. But I'm just saying this to everyone and saying this to myself, to all you fathers out there, fathers, stepfathers, fathers who adopted, uncles. I'm an uncle. You know, you know, uncles who are you have godchildren. I have them. This is your day. This is our day. And I'm going to call that my day too because I got to see two of my godchildren. I got to see my nieces. I got to see my two little great grand ones and all grand and great, however you want to call it. Trust me, it's hard to say. But when you look at Father's Day today, think about this. I think about someone like Spider-Man here. I think of how he lost his mother and father, but he had Uncle Ben to be called his father. It didn't matter, if he was not his biological father. Uncle Ben was his father. Alfred was a father to Bruce Wayne after his parents died. Tony Stark may not have been that close to his father, but he knew his father, and he loved his father. And you have Captain America that tries to be fathers to everyone, and then you have Superman, the first one. He was someone who was raised by two parents that loved him to death, that taught him to be a human. The ultimate immigrant, taught to be human, and taught to be a good man. Luke Skywalker had Obi-Wan and Yoda. I could go on and on, but when it comes for Father's Day today and for Father's Day forever, always take care of your children. Look after them, nurture them. To quote Uncle Ben, with great power comes great responsibility. And two, for me, I also like to extend my gratitude to the ones that, even though I came from a wonky religion, and there's a couple of them that were in a way like almost father figures, but the problem was, I would sit here and say this about the JWs, was when you don't seem like you're not raised like a father by a single father, or a father, didn't have a father figure in your life, they automatically think that you're a fatherless boy. And you know what? I hated that because I was not fatherless, because I knew my father. And I was not going to let no one like that take that away from me. And I'm glad they didn't. And I'm glad my mother didn't. I tried. Some in there that did try, but I could go on another YouTube channel and do that, and I might do another one on that. But right now, this is something I'll focus on just for all of us who are, like I said, you don't have to be a father per se. You could be an uncle or anyone like that. This is your day too. This is our day. And so I want to say to everyone out there, happy Father's Day. May you be blessed. May you stay strong for your children. May you stay strong all together. Because trust me, one of the best gifts that a child could have is a strong, loving father, and someone that could help nurture and grow them, and also a good husband, boyfriend, however you want to call it. This is your weekend. This is our weekend. So please enjoy it. Please be safe. And I will have more content coming. I am working on it. Just give me time. And I want to thank each and every one of you for the subscriptions and for the views. It's slowly but surely growing. And I appreciate all this and all the love, and sending all my love to all of you. So please, be safe. Be strong. Have a blessed weekend. And agape.